No, because when I do it, I'm sputtering through it. And sweaty anger and energy. But you turned it into a really beautifully crafted bit.
You could see the moves and everything. It was clean. With Lou, you don't even know the joke's coming. When Louis did it, I didn't think that's a joke. I just thought, this is a man falling apart for my pleasure.
You're like my youngest daughter.
This is a man spilling his heart out, telling me what a bad day he's had, and it's hilarious, but it's really weird.
To do what he wants.
Jerry Seinfeld has just performed one of Louis C.K.'s jokes, and Ricky Gervais immediately notices something strange. When Jerry tells it, you can see the construction. When Louis tells the exact same joke, Ricky doesn't experience it as a joke. It feels like watching a man's life fall apart for his entertainment. And that exchange basically explains why HBO's Talking Funny is so interesting. You have Jerry Seinfeld, Louis C.K., Chris Rock, and Ricky Gervais sitting around a table trying to explain comedy, except the more they talk, the less they agree. Jerry believes in refining material. Louis destroys material and starts over. Chris will repeat a premise until the entire audience understands exactly what he means, and Ricky sometimes gets suspicious when a joke is too easily made funny. So Talking Funny doesn't really give us the rules of comedy. It gives us 4 great comedians disagreeing about them, and the places where they disagree tell us far more about writing and performing comedy than any universal formula would.
I have the same feeling because I throw away my act every year. I do.
The first major disagreement happens almost immediately. Jerry wants to build an act and gradually replace pieces of it. Louis throws his away. At first, this sounds like a disagreement about how often comedians should write, but they're really arguing about what happens after a joke becomes reliable. Jerry believes repetition makes material better. You find unnecessary words. You discover pauses. You learn exactly how an audience interprets a setup. A joke performed 200 times contains more information than a joke performed twice. Louis worries about what happens when that process becomes comfortable.
Every year, Prince has a new album.
Right.
But Jerry's point is that when you go and see Prince, you want to see his greatest hits, not his new album you haven't heard.
No, not necessarily.
I want to see both.
Not necessarily.
I want to see both.
The comedians use Prince as a comparison. Jerry says when you see Prince, you want to see the hits. Chris remembers periods where he couldn't wait to hear what Prince did next. These represent 2 different relationships with an audience. Jerry asks, how do I give them the best possible show? And Chris asks, how do I make them interested in whatever I do next?
You on TV doing a special and they see the stuff they love, and then they come see you live and they see it live, they'll actually be happy.
Right.
But they won't come back again. They'll go, I know what that guy does. If they come and see you live after the special and it's completely different.
Louis wants his material to change and evolve so completely that eventually the audience isn't coming back for specific jokes. They're coming back for him. And then he takes the philosophy to an extreme.
You don't rise to the occasion if you don't put the void there.
Right.
If you take away your old material from yourself, like one thing I started doing when I was developing hours is I'd take my closing bit and I'd open with it.
Right.
Just to myself. Just because then I have to follow my strongest bit.
That's how he got good. You see this attitude?
While developing an hour, Louis sometimes takes his strongest closing bit and opens with it. Now his safety net is gone immediately. He has to follow his best material. I don't think the lesson is to throw away everything you write. The lesson is recognizing when material starts protecting you. A newer comic who constantly abandons jokes needs Jerry's philosophy. Stay with the joke long enough to learn what it actually is. But if you've been surviving the whole time on reliable material because you're afraid to lose it, Louis' approach becomes useful. Jerry improves through refinement, Louis improves through discomfort. And a good comic, needs both.
That's what we do, is take a subject and just don't leave it alone until there's nothing left of it.
I think
for you, it's like whatever. If it's soap or shampoo, you're going to put the shampoo bottle there and just poke at it and bludgeon it.
When they start discussing comedic voice, they describe Jerry as someone who can take something as ordinary as shampoo and keep poking at it until there's nothing left. Chris Rock works differently.
Yeah, but he has to do that because that's a richer idea than they're used to hearing from a comedian.
That's right.
So he has to teach them.
Oh, I think he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But that's,
And a lot of comedians have great jokes, and they don't like, why isn't this working? It's not working because the audience does not understand the premise.
That's right.
So I just, I'm going to make sure, if I set this premise up right, this joke will always work.
Chris takes one central premise and attacks it repeatedly. He states it, gives examples, restates it, approaches it from another direction. The others describe this almost as Chris teaching the audience. Sometimes a comedian has a great joke that doesn't work because the audience never understood its core idea. That completely changes how you diagnose a failed joke. The instinct is to blame the punchline, change the final sentence, add a tag, make it shorter. But the joke might have fizzled out and died 20 seconds earlier. A punchline is the conclusion of an argument. If the audience doesn't understand how you got there, rewriting the conclusion won't explain anything. That's why Chris's repetition works. He isn't repeating himself because the audience is stupid. He's eliminating ambiguity. By the time the punchline arrives, everybody understands the world in which that punchline makes sense. So when a joke fails, don't only ask whether the ending was funny. Ask whether the audience understood why the ending was the ending in the first place.
Couldn't believe how easy it was to personify animals. And then I felt guilty. I thought, this is almost cheating, because it's instantly funny. You personify an animal. And I thought, oh. So then I started worried about, it's not just being funny, it's being proud of your stuff and doing things that other people couldn't do.
Ricky introduces a completely different problem here. He discovers something that makes people laugh too easily. For example, personifying animals works so reliably that he starts feeling guilty. It's like cheating. Ricky wants somebody watching his comedy to think that he worked for the joke. More importantly, he wants to make something another comedian and even a regular person couldn't have easily written. He takes pride in his jokes, and it feels like he's taking some sort of arbitrary moral high ground. This introduces a distinction and a debate. There's comedy that works, period. And then there's comedy you're proud worked. And Louis has a much simpler standard.
Easy laughs or cheap laughs doesn't exist.
No.
Like people say things about like comedians that curse and comedians that don't curse. If you use getting an easy laugh, let's see you go get a laugh with so easily.
Louis basically rejects the concept of an easy laugh. If profanity supposedly makes comedy easy, why don't you go on stage and try to get a laugh just by swearing? There's something refreshingly practical about that. The audience doesn't know whether your joke took 6 months or 6 minutes. They know whether they laughed. Jerry and Chris sit somewhere between them.
By the way, I don't mind if I'm getting a laugh on something that's like, I have certain things in my act. I have laughs that I get that are, I feel like I got a laugh somewhere that nobody's gotten a laugh before. I feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I get laughs where I'm like, this is a huge, broad, cheap laugh, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I don't mind that.
Louis recognizes that some laughs feel special, like he found a laugh nobody else had found before. But he also admits he gets an enormous broad amount of laughs and enjoys them too. And then the conversation produces a perfect example.
Years and years ago, I saw a comic in some horrible club bombing with a guitar, and he sang, sitting on a cock 'cause I'm gay. And that's still...
This is an unbelievably stupid and crude joke, and everyone seems to love it. More importantly, Louis remembers it years later. This comedian was bombing. The joke is so crude and terrible. There's nothing prestigious about it. Yet it survived, and they can't leave it alone.
Built in the irony. The comedian has built in the irony of how mad and disgusting and funny that is. That comedian hasn't built in any irony. We built in the irony. We're laughing because we put irony onto it.
No, it's a funny joke.
I don't think so.
Again, we see Ricky try and take credit for the joke, trying to explain how they, the comedians, the one with the true whimsical power, are the ones that make this crude joke work. Maybe they're adding irony that wasn't originally there. The others resist. Sometimes you just love a bit because it's funny. This is Talking Funny disproving its own theories in real time. 4 brilliant comedians are trying to construct a hierarchy of comedy, and a stupid song from a bombing guitar comic refuses to fit into those norms. So I think the useful distinction is this. A laugh proves effectiveness. It doesn't prove originality. And originality doesn't prove something is funny. The goal is to have both. But never become so intellectually interested in comedy that you have to explain away from the fact that something makes you laugh.
Do I bow or do I say thank you? So I asked Jerry what to do, and he said, you stay in the bit. You stay in the bit that they're reacting to. You don't go, hey, people. People are applauding.
Here, Louis tells a story about opening for Jerry. He had never played in theaters where audiences applauded at individual jokes, so when it happened, he had no idea what to do. Jerry told him, just stay in the bit. If they're applauding because you're angry, stay angry. If you're confused, stay confused. Don't suddenly become the comedian thinking, wow, they like that. Oh my god, they really like it. It sounds like minor performance advice, but it connects directly to the discussion about persona. The audience knows this is a performance. They know you've told these jokes before. But for those few seconds, they still want to believe the thought and emotions that are happening now. Later, they describe the psychological version of the same relationship.
Yeah.
You feel the audience's fear, your own fear. The whole show is about quelling fear. And that's what you're talking about when you have a bit that you really are confident in and you know the end of it's really strong. And the audience feels your fear level go down.
Yep.
And they relax. And they go, oh, he seems to be very confident in this one.
Yep.
And
the comedians describe stand-up almost as an exchange of anxiety. When the comedian reaches material he trusts, his fear level drops. The audience senses it and relaxes too. That explains why the same joke can kill one night and struggle the next without changing much on paper. The audience isn't reading your script or jokes, they're reading you. They feel hesitation. They feel when you rush because you're afraid of silence. They feel when you're waiting for their permission to continue.
What do you fear now?
the same thing.
What though? What's that? That they
It's
don't
not
laugh?
going to work.
It's not something not being funny.
There's two fears. The first fear is they're not going to pay attention. And
But they've paid.
that's the
That's 'cause
the
you work
biggest
for-
fear.
Jerry and Chris are taking this one step further. Their first fear isn't even that the audience won't laugh, it's that they won't pay attention. That pulls everything else in order. Before laughter comes attention, before attention comes trust. The punchline is the final step.
Well, I
Work
think
on
there's a
their
responsibility. That's why I
It
say
is, it's
I better
responsibility.
have something special to say. And I don't think it's just enough to do 60 minutes of them laughing, because they can't take that with them, right? Whereas if you say something
At one point, the comedians talk about what happens when someone buys a ticket to see you. They hired a babysitter, they drove to the theater, they parked, they spent money. Seeing you is a required effort, and this brings us back to Jerry and Louie. Jerry believes that responsibility means giving people the strongest act you possibly have. Louis believes it means something to create that they want a return for. Ricky says he doesn't think 60 minutes of laughter is enough. He wants something to resonate, something the audience takes home. The best bits stay with you for 20 years, which is a slight problem in his own argument, because talking funny has given us a perfect example of a joke surviving for years.
Sitting on a cot 'cause I'm gay.
None of these comedians gives us a formula, but across all their disagreements, a few things survives. The joke needs something underneath it. The audience needs to understand the premise. The performer needs to hold their attention and commit to the performance. After that, comedy becomes much more personal. Do you want the perfect joke, the newest joke, the most original laugh, the biggest laugh, or something people will remember 20 years later? And maybe the strangest lesson from talking funny is that those things don't always come from the same joke. Sometimes the carefully constructed bit survives, and sometimes it's
Sitting on a cot 'cause I'm gay.
Long live Chappelle's.